Welcome, everyone, to Why Soul Works. Thanks for joining us. I'm Kendall Bird. I'm your host. I'm the VP of Brand here at Soul Naturals. Thank you for joining us and for commenting. It always enriches the program. So appreciate you being here tonight. And we have an exciting program tonight. Stress. We hear about it and we can feel it in many different ways. Our lifestyles are contributing to that stress, and we are seeing those effects of stress in our health, both physically and mentally. It makes us anxious just to hear the word stress. And but what is stress? And are we just not made to handle stress in our lives? Should we avoid the stressors at all costs? Or is there something we can do to manage stress? You know what? Let's talk about that right now on Why Soul Works. I am excited tonight to have a special guest with us to talk to us about stress, her thoughts on that, and it's Dr. Allison Caldwell Andrews. Dr. Andrews is our chief scientific advisor. Dr. Andrews received her PhD in clinical psychology from the University of Kentucky and completed a postdoc in mind-body medicine at the Yale University School of Medicine. As a faculty member of Yale, she served as director of research for the Yale Perioperative Research Group, conducting clinical research on interventions designed to reduce surgery-related anxiety. During this time, she published 30 articles in peer-reviewed journals. Additionally, she has acted as a reviewer for several medical journals and personally received 2 grants from the National Institute of Health. After her years at Yale, Dr. Caldwell Andrews began a private practice in which she specializes in emotional regulation OCD and the highly sensitive personality. She also spent several years as a research director at an international medical products company, as well as consulting for a business firm. She began her work with Soul Naturals in 2011. Her interest in mind-body healing began in the early 1990s, and she is a certified nutritional herbalist. She's an active public speaker, author, conducts workshops, and consults in the areas of creating success behaviors, herbs and the mind-body connection, and science-based holistic treatments for psychiatric disorders. Welcome, Allison.
Thank you so much, Kendall.
We are so fortunate.
Happy.
Yes, thank you. We're so fortunate to have you here tonight to share your thoughts on this, and you are a qualified person to help us understand this crazy thing, stress. So when we talk about stress, what is stress?
Stress is technically, the technical definition of stress is anything that alters your homeostatic state. And so your body wants homeostasis. That means kind of the same thing. And so your body wants to be essentially at rest. And I don't mean at rest like I'm laying on the couch watching TV. I could mean walking, I could mean sitting, I could mean enjoying a sunset, but your body wants to be functioning at sort of a normal place. Stress is anything that provides a challenge to that. And so stress can be good and it could be bad. In psychology, we call good stress eustress, EU stress. And then we call bad stress distress. And so you could be distressed by something that is a challenge and unhappy. You could be stressed in a good way about, going on vacation. You've probably all experienced that, the stress of something good happening, getting married, having a baby, etc. So there are 2 kinds of stress, but both of them involve an aberration from your current relatively healthy state.
And so when does stress become a bad thing?
it becomes a bad, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, but it becomes a bad thing when you don't solve the problem. I think that's really the easiest way to encapsulate what happens is your body is actually really able to manage stress. But when you don't solve the problem, like all of these are signs, all the stressful signs are indicators of, hey, pay attention, there's a problem, solve the problem. Let's overcome the problem, you might say. And so managing stress helpfully is all about reading those signs and then taking steps to fix the issues. Sometimes we cannot fix the problem, then stress can become chronic. And what happens is that it affects our body and our mind. It affects your thinking, it affects your sense of encouragement, it affects your sense of connection to other people, it affects the way your body works, the way health is, your immune system. All of these things are affected. And when you don't solve that problem, then those consequent, I guess, results are problematic.
Yeah, that's true. So you've prepared some slides for us. Will you go through those and tell us a little bit more about stress?
I'd love to. So we all have stress. Stress, it fluctuates. Sometimes we have what we consider to be more stress, and sometimes we're recovering from the stress and we don't realize sometimes that, oh, this is a really great period. We're just sort of like, oh, that was awful, I hope nothing else happens. And then something else happens. And so we learn how to mitigate our stress. We learn how to manage our stress, at least in the ideal. That's what we learn, is how to mitigate, how to manage, how to solve problems, how to read the signs, what to do when we are extra stressed. But the comforting thing, and I think it's important to remember this, especially in our current culture, this comforting thing is that our bodies are literally built to succeed in managing stress. We are meant to succeed. We have everything we need in our bodies and our brains to succeed. We are currently in a culture that has kind of leaned toward this idea of the best thing to do is avoid. And so we have this idea that you should avoid having stress, just like you should avoid being anxious. You should avoid being upset, and that somehow that will help you. So I know a number of people, and maybe more young people than not, who believe that being anxious in itself is a problem. Instead of saying, oh, being anxious is a sign for me that something is dangerous, or I am having a thought about this that is fooling me into thinking that this is more dangerous than it actually is. So the idea that our bodies are meant to manage stress, and we're going to talk about some of those things that in your body help you manage stress. We are also here with everyone else. And so our connections are a huge thing that we can rely on to help our bodies regulate. Being in connection with other people is a major help for mitigating and managing stress. And so again, the main issue is that we solve the problem. And so recognizing the signs of stress and then deciding, what can I do to solve this, will be the best help that we can get in terms of managing stress. One last idea, maybe I put this on my slide, if I do something yesterday, sometimes I don't remember what it was today, but you can practice. I'm pretty sure I put this in there. You can practice having stress and you get better at it. And so avoiding stress is not helpful ever. Taking it on and figuring out how you can manage it better, that's the way to do it. So next slide. Oh, you see, here it is. Exercising your body response to stress. This actually creates better resilience. And so you can think of it as, oh, I get a chance to exercise this. Like when you have other challenges, you might say, oh, so I get a chance to figure out how to strengthen my right leg or something like that. Or I get a chance to figure out, how do I solve this headache? What are the things that I need? So instead of, oh, woe is me, this is awful, I have this problem and I wish I didn't, what you want to do is see this as an opportunity for creating more resilience. So you exercise, your body responds to stress, you end up with better stress resilience. It doesn't mean that stress goes away and you never have it again. It means that it's not as awful as it used to be because you're better at it. Next. So our bodies are built to be protective to us from all kinds of threats. We have these habits that protect us, and the habits help us manage stress better. They protect us from the long-term effects of stress. We're going to go through several of them, but the first group are all connected to this concept of the three-legged stool. And if you've ever read The Fix, then you know that I have this thing about this three-legged stool. Nutrition, sleep, and exercise, those are the legs, and hydration is the seat of the stool that kind of makes it all work together. Next. So we're going to talk about each one of those three legs. Nutrition gives us everything we need to run the body, the macro and the micronutrients that we need to operate, that we need to heal, that we need to manage. Stress uses up nutrients. A lot of times we don't really realize that. We think that we just have to try harder. But what we also need to do is supply the body with the nutrients it needs to help it manage the stress. Stress uses up magnesium, it uses up B vitamins, it uses up antioxidants, etc. And so we have to keep supplying your body with these nutrients, probably more than you were doing when you're just in your regular homeostatic state. Adaptogens are a specialized kind of nutrition. You can think of them that way, kind of like a little mini buffet of all kinds of nutrition that our body can choose and select what it's needed for. Medicinal herbs, like adaptogens, like a number of other medicinal herbs, also can help your body function better, primarily because they are giving you the nutrients you need and the plant substances that can help particular body systems manage better. Okay, next. Sleep, another of the three legs. Quality sleep is critical. I'm working right now a little bit on a burnout, ideas about burnout, and realizing that in order to recover from burnout or stress, burnout is a specialized kind of stress, or illness or anything, you have to have good sleep. And not having good sleep really gets in the way of everything. It gets in the way of your thinking, it gets in the way of healing, it gets in the way of even just basic body operations, because your cells all have little miniature body clocks in them that keep track of what needs to happen when, so that your body can go through all of its systems and kind of repair and manage and clean off, dust off, etc. When you don't get enough sleep, this interferes with everything. And so when you think about how can I get sleep, it's not just let me get my 8 hours in. Sometimes it might be let me get my 9 hours in. We know women need more sleep than men. And we know that women tend to be more sensitive in their sleep than men. And so you got to take care of this. Sleep can become a little bit fragile. So you have to have good boundaries to keep care of your sleep. Stick to the same routine that will help you with your circadian rhythm. So getting 8 hours any old time is not nearly as good as getting 8 hours at the same time every night. Okay, next. Exercise, finally exercise. We all know, fantastic for you. When you think about exercise, just think about how gifted we are with the opportunity to create healing in our bodies just through movement. Any kind of movement that will help the body, you could call exercise. In our country, we have kind of a weird idea about exercise. For example, we've got this wonderful thing called yoga that we have decided has to be the same as exercise, instead of letting it be movement that's very healing and very connecting. Instead, we're like, oh, how can we pound it out and really get exercise out of this? Because we're kind of not seeing the value of movement. We're seeing the value of sweating. So let's balance that a little bit, and I think help people by realizing, one, there's research that came out recently that I think is really interesting that says women actually need less exercise than men do to get the same benefits. And it's like on the order of maybe a third. Women need maybe a third of the same amount of exercise compared to men to get the same benefits that men get from more exercise. The right amount of exercise will be anti-inflammatory for you. If you're doing more exercise or extremer size, which you might think of, then what's happening is you're actually creating more inflammation. You're creating more stress. And so you want to make sure you're doing enough. You're not doing too much, but you're doing plenty throughout the day. And I don't mean that every other minute you're, lifting weights. What I mean is that you're moving your body. You're not just sitting all day. You're doing some movement. So your need for exercise will vary. It depends on the day. It depends on the time of year. It depends on what else you have going on that day. Were you recently recovering from an illness? Do you have a lot going on? Did you not sleep well? Whatever it is, make sure that your exercise keeps you feeling good and doesn't make you exhausted. That's a sign where you need to go fix something, and maybe solving an exercise routine that is exhausting, making it into something that is rejuvenating is what you need here. Next. Hydration. When you hydrate, then everything can work together. Think about it like you're going to make a soul shake. And so you've got your shaker bottle and you put in some Complete and some Avant Greens and maybe a little Infatuate, and then you mix it up and drink or chew it. Have you ever tried that? No, of course not. Of course you add the water because it's so much better. And so think about adding the water to your body. Help your nutrients get into the cells. Help your body have what it needs to move smoothly. Help your lymph system do the job of being able to take out the trash and move instead of getting stuck, sluggish, and kind of coagulated everywhere. So think about water as a key toward health. Just drink water. When you think about it, go drink some. Just think about it that way. Next. When we are stressed, first of all, we sense and perceive some sort of changes happen. That is what the insula in the brain does, in part. One of the things the insula does is it kind of tells you, hey, something is happening, right? There's a change that occurred. And the next thing that happens is you have a perception. Now, perception will interpret the stimuli around you. And so that perception will tell you, is this dangerous or is this not dangerous? Sometimes your perceptions are not accurate and you think that there's something dangerous that isn't actually dangerous. So you have to learn how to question your perceptions. But either way, your perceptions will send information to the brain, and the brain will either say, oh, we're good, that's okay. Or the brain will say, whoa, let's send that to the amygdala, which says, hey, pay attention, quick, pay attention, and let's send some hormones out so that your whole body is ready. Now, this happens super fast. The way I've told it to you, you could have probably been stressed 500 times in that space of time. And so this is a really fast reaction, which is very helpful because when there is danger, you want that really quick reaction. So your body's really good at that. You don't have to remember to do all the different things your body does when it prepares for stress. Get your heart rate beating, heart rate faster so that you can pump more blood and have more opportunities to have oxygen or whatever you need in there. Your blood becomes insulin resistant. And so the glucose gets sent to the muscles because the muscles need that glucose to do the fighting and the flighting, whatever it is that you need. And so your muscles become resistant to insulin. In other words, they need to keep the glucose as long as possible. This is a good thing. This is a really good thing. The problem is when we're not actually doing anything with the stress. We're just sitting there having fight or flight. And then we're thinking, oh, this is terrible. Give me some cookies. Well, so you're insulin resistant, eating cookies, and you're still stressed. And so this is hard on your body. The other thing that hormones do is it prepares your mind. It does things to help you be able to put things together and fight or flight, really. That's why it's called fight, flight. Sometimes we freeze, which is not as helpful. Next. Here is a side note. the more you can be compassionate, and it means, you can be compassionate to yourself or you can be compassionate to others. Feeling that compassion changes your brain. It actually makes it easier for you to respond to stress and manage your emotions, especially managing difficult emotions. Compassion makes that easier on your brain. So, nice side note. Next. So, let's review. Our bodies are built to handle stress. There's no reason to avoid it. It doesn't help. It doesn't actually work. You've probably noticed that avoiding stress doesn't really help you feel better. And if you make that three-legged stool into your lifelong habits and just kind of get over yourself now and decide, I'm going to level up a little bit every year, every month, whatever that looks like for you. Maybe it's, I'm going to learn how to drink another glass of water this month. Make that three-legged stool into your life habits. This will be the basic maintenance that helps us, because encountering hard things is what life is about. You can't avoid it. And we're built to do that. And if you didn't ever have hard things, first of all, that wouldn't be a realistic life. But secondly, that would kind of make you boring. You wouldn't be able to learn and grow. It's sort of like you're an athlete, but you've never done anything more strenuous than walk up a flight of stairs. You're not very helpful as an athlete. So you can't avoid things in order to not have stress. And you can be confident that your body is already set up to be able to handle that. Next. Togetherness with other people is a great way to help you with stress. And in many ways that I can't even go into here, your body is so built to benefit from other people. We call this co-regulating. Our bodies co-regulate as we connect with other people. We listen to their voice. We receive, actually, literally, our hearts are putting out an electromagnetic field that can reach 3 feet away from our body. And so this can help other people feel less stressed. It can help calm people down. So we as a people can co-regulate, or in other words, help manage our feelings together and calm down. And so being together is more than just 1 + 1. It's like a gestalt. The sum of the parts is greater, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Sorry. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And so there might be 3 people together, but the whole that makes is much bigger than just 3 people in terms of connection. And so if you've ever had a garden, you might know something about companion planting. This is when you do things like you grow basil next to your tomatoes. And you don't grow strawberries with your onions, because those kind of compete and they don't play very well together. So think about this like companion planting. We're here with companions, with other people. And if we're planted together and we can be companion plants, then we can really benefit each other with this co-regulation. When you avoid stress, and so think about plants again, like avoiding stress is kind of like getting a pesticide. And the pesticide will make it so that the bugs avoid you. And so when you put pesticides on plants, we know that they have fewer secondary metabolites. They're not quite as nutritious as plants that have been forced to fight on their own, instead of just, have an umbrella, get rid of all the insects for them. And so pesticides get in the way of you developing strength. Avoiding stress gets in the way of you developing. So think about, how can I have companion plants and together hold hands so that you can face your life stresses together and learn from each other and be co-regulating and develop more compassion. Okay, next. Adaptogens are also a basic maintenance. And so I think often of this story that, and I hope I don't get it wrong, but the story that Greg Halliday tells about a person who said, well, I really hope that I don't have to take these adaptogens for very long. Thinking about adaptogens as if they're like a pharmaceutical, instead of thinking about adaptogens as superior nutrition. And he kind of compared it to carrots. And I've thought about carrots or salad. It's sort of like saying, well, okay, so I'm going to eat a lot of salad this month, but I hope that then I don't have to eat salad for the rest of my life, because, I want to be tough enough to not need salad. And we can all look at that and find that kind of hilarious. right? Or I hope that I'm strong enough so that I don't need to eat carrots anymore. So if you think about adaptogens, like this is just nutrition. And why would you stop needing nutrition? Certainly when you're stressed, your body needs more nutrients, right? And so taking more adaptogens makes a lot of sense when you're stressed. So they help intervene in between your body and the effects of stress on your body, because sometimes stress can be hard on you, particularly stress that is a little more long term than a one-day solution. And so think about more adaptogens, but also think about taking care of your body with that three-legged stool, because that kind of a platform allows the adaptogens to be that much more effective for you, that they can do a lot more when you're not, beating them down with the potato chip and Coca-Cola diet, let's say. So worse body care gives them so much more to do that they don't have a lot of extras to go help you with more benefits. My last point here is they are amazing. They don't work outside of reality. And so stop working against them. They're not like absolute magic. They might feel like magic, but they're not the kind of magic that bends reality. So do what you can on your end to have good habits and good nutrition. Okay. What causes stress? Some outside influence, plus your body being unprepared, weak, a mind that's vulnerable. You might be full of self-doubt. You might have a lot of thoughts that are not helpful, self-talk that belittles you. Those are real problems with stress. Next. So here is the big idea for today. And I think this is a pretty big idea. You'll have to practice it for a few weeks to really get it. So I'm encouraging you to practice this idea. Maybe put it on an index card, put it next to your mirror, and just sort of read it every day or so. Here's the big idea. Next. The things we think are stressful are not actually the most stressful things for us. When we experience stress, we experience it in a mind-body connection. And so the biggest stressors for us are actually not getting good nutrition, sleep, hydration, and exercise, and negative self-talk. Those are our biggest stressors. Unfortunately, they are often common and kind of pervade our lives. And they're responsible for more stress than the other things that happen to us that we consider to be bigger stressors. So again, that big idea is that the things that are the most stressful are not getting good nutrition, sleep, hydration, and exercise, and negative self-talk. Next. So therefore, what you do to manage your regular stress or your unusual stressors is to have the daily consistent habits in nutrition, exercise, hydration, and sleep. And you intentionally, you don't just wait around for it to happen. You intentionally create a lot of positive self-talk, and you very intentionally, you avoid negative self-talk. Sometimes people feel like they're being unrealistic, and I would just say, keep practicing. Be intentional. Sometimes people feel like happy people are just happy because happiness rains down on them. But that's not actually accurate. Happy people are happy because they intentionally create happiness. They work at it. Happiness isn't supposed to just fall down on you. Happiness is something that you create intentionally. Next. When you look at stress, you have recovery, and now you have more resilience or more ability to manage your life. And so that same amount of stress won't really have the same effect on you because you've been stronger. And so as you can see, with each adaptation, you're creating more ability and more resilience in your stress. So think about it, that's a pretty positive thing, instead of thinking, oh, I'm always stressed, things always happen to me, which is not a very helpful way of thinking. Next. Because we tend to hold on. We don't complete that cycle. So the cycle that says, now you've adapted, we tend to ruminate. We tend to worry. We think about it over and over, even when it's all done. Even when we have solved the problem, we're still holding on to it. So recovery means we move through the stress and into that cycle where we're recognizing, hey, I've got a little more adaptation here. I've got a little more resilience. Next. And so we need more help with this recovery. When we look at post-traumatic stress disorder, what we see is that people survived the problem, but they're hanging on, they're holding on, they're stuck in terms of the recovery. They're stuck. And so what people often do is freeze. And they freeze in their body and they freeze in their mind. They're stuck in their thinking and their body is frozen. And so a lot of times people have gut issues because the body is stuck. Negative thinking gets in the way. We tend to freeze because of the way we think. And so instead of turning your thinking inward, what you want to do is turn your thinking outward and combine that with movement. Next slide. And so we have a lot of cultural learning that goes against that movement. We're kind of told, freeze your emotions. Oh my gosh, are you remembering that stress? If you're remembering it, must be terrible. You're stuck. We don't move. We stay hidden. We sit in a chair. We have tension in our shoulders. We have tension in our neck. We freeze our gut. We don't reach out to other people. We avoid. This keeps that stress and it keeps that sense of danger in our bodies, and we are stuck. Next slide. And so think about, how can I get through this with movement? So here are a lot of different ways to move. Yoga is a way of movement. When you look at movement, what you're looking at are three aspects. One is that you're moving. One is that you're thinking about your movement. You're being mindful and aware. And then one of them is that the movement is connected to breath. And so you're breathing while your body is moving. So yoga, dance, walking, singing, dribbling. Dribbling adds this extra level of balance. That's kind of great. Bajuengin, which is something, look it up, Bajuengin. It's pretty cool. Good movement. Biking is another one. Next slide. Helping your body breathe. You can take deep breaths. A lot of times people say, well, just breathe, but they don't really talk about how. And so just breathe is a lot less useful, and it feels kind of insulting to people. Just breathe. But if you take really deep breaths, what happens is those areas of your lungs that are receiving more oxygen when you're taking a deep breath actually promote relaxation. When you take a lot of breath that's shallow breath, that actually makes you more anxious. So deep breaths, elongate that out breath. Don't force it, just follow your breath. Sometimes people feel like the breath has to be completely uniform, and then their body's panicking because they're not able to breathe naturally. And then you can try this breathing out with a V sound. So it sounds like V. So you could try that. That's fairly helpful for your body. Next slide. The other thing you can do with your thinking is, how can I love others? Turning outward instead of inward. Things might be hard for you right now, but you can still probably text somebody and say, hey, thinking about you. Thanks for the things you do. I think you're wonderful. Something like that. Practice this. See if you can practice every day. Get really good at texting people about how wonderful they are. Next slide.
That is some great information. Thank you. A couple of things that you said really kind of hit home to me. You talked a little bit about stress using nutrition or our nutrients. That it uses those up, and when we're having stress. Right. That's powerful. That's very interesting to me, that to know that, and then knowing that you then have to replace those nutrients with food and supplements and that. And what's also fun is that hydration being as important as it is, and you needing to replace nutrition, you can put powder in water and make a drink out of it. For instance, Vital, and get your nutrition and your hydration, some of your nutrition and your hydration at the same time. I think that's fun. Also, you talked about insulin resistance, something I've been thinking about quite a bit lately, that stress causes the body momentarily to have insulin resistance, and then continues that cycle, I'm sure. Is that
In a
right?
very adaptive way, very adaptive, because you need that glucose in your muscles. And so the body is supposed to be resistant to insulin in order to keep that glucose available for whatever you might need to do to fight or flight. And so it's very adaptive. The body is adaptive.
And that's great when you actually do need that. But then when you're feeling
Right.
these stressors that sometimes are fake stressors, or this fight or flight thing, when it's something that isn't actually needing you to run or to use your muscles or whatever, I can imagine that creates that issue of chronic stress, right?
Well, if you don't learn how to move through it, then it could, if you keep remembering it and ruminating over and over and practicing being stuck. And so if you find that you're stressed, maybe that you just had a run in with a copy machine, like that's happened to me, where now you're stressed. Or you just kicked the coffee table, and that's stressful for everyone.
Yeah.
And so you move your body so that those kind of messages can move through. So you might
Mhm.
say, okay, I'm pretty stressed. That was a difficult encounter with that copy machine. So I need to do a lot of jumping jacks.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just love jumping jacks. I think that's a easy, you've got your own equipment. You can do it pretty much anywhere.
Yeah.
Just do some jumping jacks so you can kind of metabolize out that cortisol. Cortisol stays in your body for the half life, I think, is about 60 minutes. And so that the cortisol is what's responsible for those kinds of effects. So the insulin resistance is about cortisol. Again, cortisol will also say, oh, look at all these fat cells. What can I do with them? Let's put them in the belly. That's where we need to keep them. Yes, people love that. And so you want to help metabolize that cortisol out.
Yeah. I also loved the stress cycle, this graph you showed of how overcoming the stressor actually made you better. And then over time, I'd imagine that it works in the opposite. If you're avoiding every stressor, then you start losing that over time. I know with, if you say stress, I mean, exercise or physical exertion is a stressor to your body, a good stressor. But if you decide not to do that over a period of time, the graph goes the other way. And I'm sure that's
It's
the same
actually
with
stressful.
other.
Yeah, it's stressful to not exercise.
Yeah.
So doing too much exercise is stressful. Doing not enough exercise is stressful.
Yeah. And it's hard to know what that is. You have to kind of listen to your body, I guess, right?
Right.
Um, yeah, I love all that. I think the fact that adaptogens are available in this day and age. I mean, I guess they've been around for a long time, but they're available to the masses. Some through Soul Naturals. I think that's a lovely thing, because I think that nutrition that is very dense and powerful is important in the world today, because it's hard to get nutrition in the way things are grown and such.
Yeah, getting the good nutrition is becoming more of a challenge. Well, right, like you said, things are also more available to everyone, and having an adaptogen in every product, and adaptogens that are sourced in a way so that they're as pure as we can get them and as effective and potent as we can get them is a huge boon to all of us.
Yeah, great. Well, Allison, another fantastic message you've given us today. I always enjoy hearing you. Thank you for sharing your time with us tonight.
I love it. Thank you.
We'll talk to you later. So that was fantastic. I hope you learned as much as I did about stress. Opened my eyes to several different things there. If you like watching this program live, and you've come to find us recorded and you've watched it and you want to get a notification that we're about to go live, or we might even send you a notification the day before. For this program and any of our live stream programs, you can text to this number. Text the word events to the number 833-205-3371, and you can receive text that we have an event for you to watch on YouTube. You can also click the subscribe button and the bell icon of YouTube, and YouTube will send you a notification that we're going live. So that's another way that you can get that. Our next program of Why Soul Works will be on May 7th. So put that on your calendars. But that's all for today. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time on Why Soul Works.